Hello, welcome to Land of Kakiak. My name is Laurel. Today's homeschool video is on my spelling bootcamp. So every year I take a pause from spelling. This is like for the elementary school years, and we go through spelling bootcamp. It's always a little different year to year, just because the kids are at different, stages. They've learned more. I tried to put together a resource that could be helpful in case somebody else wanted to implement this in their homeschool. And so I'm going to give you kind of a quick flip through of it. And then I'm going to show you some of the work I've been doing with my third grader this year. So this year, my seventh grader, he's not doing it with us. Although I feel like there's some kind of osmosis in the air when you're all in one room. He's overhearing stuff anyways. So let me just show you what comes with my spelling bootcamp and why you may want to do a spelling bootcamp. Not necessarily mine, but just that idea. And some of the other extra resources that I pull in. Okay, first let's just start with what I actually put together. If you purchased this, it comes with these two things. So there's the spelling bootcamp. This is the teacher guide. And then there's the spelling bootcamp student notebook. So this is what you would have. And then you could print these off for however many kids you were doing this with. Also, there's this little bookmark. I just printed it. It comes like this. And I just pulled it in half, and I've just been recording what lessons we've already done just to kind of keep myself on track, or if, you lose your spot in your book or something. There's a document included. It's just a 2-page document, but you can print as many times as you want for spelling bootcamp. It's just the blank lessons. So if there was a special lesson that you wanted to write up and include, I put some blank ones in there for you. Or if you wanted to create your own, you could print out a whole notebook worth of this and create your own, write in your own lessons. And I made some assessments. So there's one for phonemes of the alphabet, A through Z. So if you have a really young learner. So I'm looking for them to know all the sounds that the letters can spell. Are controlled vowels, ed suffix, and the glued sounds. So this is the key, right? And this is the test, the blank one, so then you could check it. A consonant digraph assessment. Again, blank assessment, key. And a vowel team and diphthong assessment. Blank, test, key. And a spelling rules assessment. So there's going to be words, blank, and key. Words that exemplify some of the rules, so you can check and see if they are familiar with them. Something I was doing at the time is I was trying to be okay, so how would you administer this test? So first of all, if you're having a kid that you're going to have to do all of the assessments, it's going to take a long time, and they're probably going to get burned out. So I wouldn't recommend doing all of the assessments in one go. And I would instead just kind of go for younger kids. If you're going to do this with a first grader, just do the phonemes of the alphabet. Maybe, second grader, maybe add in phonemes and the R controlled ED and glued sounds. Third grader, add on the consonant digraph assessment, and probably the vowel teams. I could do vowel teams probably by then too, but maybe fourth grade, add it on. I would just do the spelling rule keys straight for the older student, 4th, 5th, 6th, maybe if you're doing it. But I would spread these assessments out. I would just do one a day. I would just take a week and spread them out. And, you don't tell them if they're right or wrong or anything. Don't just tell them you're just checking to see what you need to work on. So you don't have to do this part. This is if you sometimes it's nice to get a baseline of what they know and don't know. And then you can compare it year to year. It also, my original intent was thinking that you would only target the areas that they didn't know. So you wouldn't have to do necessarily like every single lesson. And there is, this column here is for lessons in alpha phonics that covered those like phonemes. So there's not necessarily one for every single one because alpha phonics doesn't necessarily cover every single one. But you know, since reading and spelling are like two sides of the same coin, spelling especially, working on spelling, and I think the research says explicitly teaching spelling really helps reading. It helps reading more than reading helps spelling. So if you really want a good reader, or if you have a struggling reader, I would think about explicitly teaching spelling. You can take this or leave this. You don't have to use it. There is, and what you're gonna do when you know, say you're looking for, you know, consonant digraphs, right? Like your CH, SH, TH, KN, PS, you know, TCH, those type of things. You're just going to be looking in the words when they, you know, see if they spell it right or wrong, just that part, because that's just what we're testing for. One thing I will say about spelling is I have to say this to my kids all the time. There are so many different ways that we have in English to spell certain sounds because of our, just the way our language has evolved. And there's not always a rule to tell you which one to use for which word. And we have all these homophones, you know, words that sound the same but mean different things. They may be even spelled the same and mean different things, or they can be spelled the same and pronounced differently. There's a different word for that, I forget. It means same spelling instead of same sound. Homographs or something like that. So for a lot of things, you have to tell them that you just have to be familiar with it. So especially early on in the young years, they aren't familiar with a lot of words. Like I was just doing one with William yesterday. I asked him how to spell hair. And I gave him a sentence. I said, she has long hair. And so he was like, H-A-R-E. And I was like, that is one of the long A spelling patterns. H-A-R-E actually is a word. But that is the hare that's like a rabbit. You know, like the tortoise and the hare had a race. And so we talked about those being homophones. And there's really no way to tell you when you just hear the word hare which way to spell it unless you put it in the context of a sentence, right? Or tell them what it means. And they have to be familiar with it. So this is why spelling is, I feel like, you just got to get in the weeds with it. It's just not a cut and dry subject. Do you know what I mean? And you really have to get into the details, you know? So that's what the boot camp is about. It's about just getting into the details, getting familiar with words. It's weird, but like our brains do learn this stuff, but you have to actually expose them to it. And your brain, the brains make the connections, you know, like we all went through that process. But if you just ignore it and think, oh, I just don't, I agree that there is a bit of passive spelling learning that comes about from reading, right? But it's even better if you explicitly teach it, in my opinion, right? They'll start seeing, once you teach it, have you ever like, what's the word, like, I don't know what this phenomenon is called. I'm sure there's a word for it. But have you ever like not had the words for something? And then once you had the word for it, like you learned there was a word for it, it's like your brain like started connecting dots like crazy, and you all of a sudden mapped something in your mind. You had such a better understanding of it. Like that's what it's like with spelling and like the spelling rules and learning all the different sounds that letters can stand for. So all that said, you can or cannot use this. There is also, if you just probably Google free spelling assessments or something like that, I'm sure you can find free versions if you want to look for those too. So I could only include 5 files with every Etsy listing I have. So I think that was already 5 things. So something else I do use is my spelling rule flashcards. I'll link those down below for you too. And I have a set of these, you know, that have the different phonographs on them. And then I like to write on the back the different, like, you know, like different words with different sounds and the pronunciation. So I'll link those for you too. And I think this set, there's like a bunch of sets. There's also like just an ABC set. Yeah, and stuff like that. You also can use your Phonics Made Plain flashcards. Those are really big though, but like if you're doing multiple kids, I would recommend printing out the Alpha Phonics flashcards. I will try to find the link for that too. I just wanted that, the reason I made these ones is because I didn't want it to have, the Alpha Phonics has the words on the bottom too, and that's like, I didn't want them to have the words so I had to write it on the back, whatever. Okay, anyways, when we first started doing this, I just focused on, I made a flashcard set for each kid, and the first thing we did was to right pile, wrong pile. I wanted to make sure they knew all the sounds of the phonograms. And that was something we started every single lesson with whatever the wrong pile was. We just went back over that like literally every single day. It doesn't take long, but just repetitive. And I didn't actually expect them to like know them all by the end. They'll learn some, right? And like it's just cyclical. And that's a practice that you can have them doing all the time actually. Okay, so that's probably enough talk about that stuff. So inside every spelling boot camp here, this is what yours looks like. So the first page, these are links. So you can link to a bunch of resources that I recommend in here. So you could just start from the beginning. Spelling Bootcamp Lesson 1, where again, I break down of phonograms. So we just talk about phonograms versus phonemes. So if you've done this before, if your kid already knows that, you know, you can always skip lessons, right? That you don't think they need, but we just go through it. And I just go through like what you can talk to them about, like definitions and stuff. I give examples, notes. These are notes to, you know, for them to take, and an activity. So my day 1 activity was the phonogram flashcard drill, right pile, right? Or for a really young kid, you could just do student is shown each phonogram and they echo the sound, which is, if you're new to this stuff, if they haven't done that before, is a good idea, especially if they're really young. So you're doing, you know, spelling boot camp with a kindergartner, like, or you want to do it with all your kids, you've got multiple levels. So for the youngest one, you're going to want to like maybe just do the, you know, alphabet. Okay, lesson 2. So it just tells you to review. So what are you going to review every day? Number 1, your wrong pile, right? And then if we have pulled any spelling flashcards, which I mean by that is like the spelling rule flashcards, as you're like introducing new lessons, you're pulling that, whatever, if you're talking about a spelling rule that day, pulling that flashcard and you're giving it to them. So I'd also print out a set of spelling rule flashcards for each kid that you're going to be doing this with, so you can give them their spelling rule flashcard with the lesson that you're doing it with. Okay. This one is going over consonants and consonant blends. So consonant means sounding with something. Letters that are not vowels, right? And consonants cannot be shouted. So that's one of those little rules, like yell ah, right? Or a. But like B is a consonant, so you cannot shout it. So you can't shout b, right? You can't prolong it. Anyway, so it's kind of a fun little test to give them. So consonant blends are 2 or 3 consonants blended together to make a new sound. They can be found at the beginning, middle, or end of a word. So I just am walking you through some lessons here. Oh, and then I start giving you activities. So at the bottom where it says activity, that is something that you could do with them, but in my mind, it was something to do more independently. So you give them a lesson and you could do all that. And if you have time, or if you want them to do an independent activity on their own afterwards to like reinforce what you've just been explicitly teaching them, I pulled from Splendid Spelling. This is the free version, and again, it's linked in that document in the front of the book. But Mom Delights, you know, Sherry, she makes this. And you know, she has a more she's a Charlotte Mason homeschooler. She has a more Charlotte Mason approach to stuff. But she made this. And looks like that. What this is really good for is the way these lessons are. What I liked about them is that she has some explicit teaching on them. And then she has, the activities are, like I said, how a lot of our spellings, you just have to be familiar with the words and the meaning of words to know which spelling to use. And this is something that is, I thought, good practice for that to do independently. So on lesson 3, I talked about vowels and diacritics. So those are the symbols, right, that we write over our letters and stuff to tell us how they sound. Because, you know, so many things have multiple sounds. So I just gave, it's like, so we were working on the example of the A in at, ate, and all. The A is standing for a, and ah in those. And we were going to practice using the breve, the macron, the umlaut, and the schwa for pronunciations of A. We're going through that. And then for their activity, I told them to make a table of vowels marked with diacritics and example words in their notebook. I can help them if they need it. And I said, you may copy the table of vocals from McGuffey's Eclectic Spelling Book Revised Edition, found in the front of the book. Let me show you what that looks like. This is also a free, something you can download for free. I bought a hard copy. I'll link to where you can buy a hard copy too, because they're really affordable. But they have this table. Because a lot of times, like, we don't know what symbols go with what sounds. So these are the ones that McGuffey used. And yes, I do. I do start teaching the diacritics pretty early. Let me show you something. So this is my kindergartner's, his writing work from yesterday. He's in the McGuffey Primer, the revised edition. And I do start giving him diacritics. He doesn't have to write them, although sometimes he tries to, he does. But they're there, and we talk about them. I don't give him like the real names yet. I say the breve is the macaroni. The macron is the flat hat. I don't know what this is, but this is for glued sounds. I just call it the rainbow. That's when the O sounds like ooh all by itself, and two. Anyway, so yeah, I do start introducing those young. I don't expect him to produce them, but I'm teaching him to read them and how they translate to, how they stand for the different sounds. Anyways, side note. And you can simplify it. Like, you can simplify the diacritics, and I think it's okay to come up with your own. You don't have to use, like, it's at least good to learn the short and long symbols for your vowels, but it is helpful, like, for Y and like because it has like 4 sounds, to learn the diacritics for those. And the letters that can be soft or hard, like the C or the G, it's helpful. So a hard C or G has looks like the macron over it, and the soft has a dot over it, like, right? I don't know what it's called. It has the dot over it. Okay, Boot Camp lesson 4. So we would start the lesson with going over the wrong pile, right pile, wrong pile, with that wrong pile again, and reviewing the spelling flashcards you've already gone over. Just have them read them to you. Today is a new spelling rule. Whenever there's a spelling rule, I did it in red. So it's Rule 18, Part 1 specifically. Let me find it. In case you're wondering how many rules I have in my flashcard pile, I have 31. Sometimes I add an extra one in there and I forget. Okay, so it's Rule 18. It says AY usually spells A. So when you see it and the sounds like slashes and it's capitalized, that means it's saying its name. AY usually spells A at the end of a base word. It is not used in the middle or beginning of words. Pay, say, day. So that's part 1. So I'm just going over that part for this lesson. So then we have like some activities we do. Teacher dictates. I've got some words to dictate to them. And you're going to have them analyze the words. And I break it down for you how to analyze it. They're going to first say the word, they're going to repeat it back, and they're going to count the phonemes. Let's say I gave them the word sway. S, w, a. That's 3 sounds. So I have them write 3 blanks, right? I have gave a recommendation here. This will make it more fun for them. Watch. Such a little thing. I either got them from Walmart or the Dollar Tree, but I know I'll link some for you on Amazon because I know they have them there too. I've seen them there. I just take microfibers and I like cut them up into little erasers, you know, for them. What you do is you have them, so they put their blanks on there, and then you have them fill it out like what they think it is, right? Oh, or you might give an example first. You know, S, what spells S, right? Let's say S. What spells W, W? And how would we spell A at the end of a word? And they put it on one blank, AY, because it's one sound. And then you have them show it to you to see if it's right? So you can give them, like, you can walk them through it a couple times and then give them some and see if they can do it all by themselves, and then hold it up when they're done. Like, say, hold it up when you're done. And that's fun to do when you have multiple kids. Make it a little something novel to make it more interesting. Like, I don't know why kids love chalkboards so much. You know, they're like writing on paper all day long. Like, let them write on a chalkboard or like a little whiteboard or something. I'm telling you, it's like, it really gets them like involved. So they're going to be writing as they work, right? What lesson number it was. So they're going to define, like, so that's going to be whatever you're teaching them, whatever you're explicitly teaching them, they're going to put in this define, whether if it's a rule or if it's like spelling vocabulary that you're going over, like when we talked about what's a phonogram, what's a phoneme, right? That's where they write those in. Then the examples that you gave them, and then notes. This could be anything that you guys do together that you want to include in the notes for them. Let's see, and then for that text activity that day, I said, okay, splendid spelling, pages 4 to 5, or Wheeler's Graded Studies, lesson 3. So Wheeler's Graded Studies is also linked in the front page of the teacher book, but I bought a hard copy. It's because it's free to download. So I linked you the free PDF because it's in the public domain. So I said to do lesson 3. Lesson 3, AY. See, this one also shows you the macron over it. A long, right, marked. They show you how to mark it. And so their activity, copy the following sentences carefully. Remember that the punctuation is a part of the written sentence. Write from dictation. So you could dictate this to them, and it's just little lines of poetry and stuff. So it's, number 1 is, and on the bay, and they put in italics the words that are matching the pattern. The moonlight lay, and the shadow of the moon by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. I'm sorry, my voice is terrible. I have not had a voice for like months. I don't know if I'm ever going to talk normal again. So you can dictate to them, or you could have them do it as copy work. But part of this is the working with the words to become familiar with them, like we talked about before. And the more you work with them, read them, write them, the more they stick in your head. Because you know how it is, like, and then sometimes like when you hear a new word, you're like, how do I spell that? You think of a word that sounds similar, right? Like, don't you do that? Like, well, this is spelled this way, so I wonder if this is spelled this way. So it's good. It's a good practice. Okay. So also in this, I just want you to know that, and this is at the back of the parent of the teacher's book. Okay, and it progresses, right? It gets, by the end, I think there's 34 lessons, and it's, the last one's going over rules 20, 22, and 27. Right, it looks like that. I do give a spelling vocabulary pages back here, just so defining terms if you're not sure what they are. And then I give the spelling rules, right? Just like in paper form, just so you can have them. I put that in all of my spelling, like workbooks and stuff. I just think it's good to have them to refer to. They're back of the student notebook as well, so they have their own copy too, as well as syllable types and the syllable division rules, because I think you'll be doing that as well for some of the lessons, is dividing syllables. I thought I would show you. I'm doing this just with William this year. Last year I did it with William and Everett and Bo, because he was a preschooler, but I was just showing him his, like he had his own little slate, and for his, you know, I would just do the ABC flashcards, and I would say, write the letter A, right? uppercase, right? The letter lowercase a. Like, so he really liked writing on the slate too. So you can kind of like level what you're doing. I think for Bo, so after William, I'm actually not combining them this year because they're just too different. Everett's just fully into vocabulary now and independently working on pretty much everything now. But William is still getting, you know, some explicit instruction every day. I think for Bo, after I'm done with going through Spelling Bootcamp with Will, I think actually I'm going to do a kind of a Spelling Bootcamp with my kindergartner, and I'm going to use this. I made this a while back. It says Reading and Spelling for Beginners, CVC in print. I think that there's also a cursive one, but so I want to start teaching him how to spell CVC words. So yeah, we'll just like, of course, we're going to review the alphabet. And of course, it's my favorite font, the Danielian print. And lessons 1 and 2. So this is like 2 days worth. I think I took these words from, the words I took them from the, yeah. But what I'm going to be working on mostly is just that analyzing portion, because that's also something that we do in all of my McGuffey spelling workbooks, but that sounding it out or counting the phonemes and then writing the corresponding phonograms in the blanks. So I think I am going to go through this with him, and I think that'll really help. I'll be doing that during our writing component. I think of spelling as writing, because I'll still have him reading his primer, like his whatever lesson, but I'm going to have him writing to be this spelling practice. Let's see, how many lessons are there in here? There are 39. It says 39. We start with AM and we end up with like a couple blends in there, like ST. Anyways, I think this is perfect for kindergarten. I think it's gonna be perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so I thought I would show you. We're doing things a little bit different with Will this year. So let me show you what his is looking like. Just because like year to year, you just might want to try something different. You know, let me show you what we're doing. I'm gonna turn the camera down so you can see. I am wanting to not have so many extra notebooks and things. That's why I created the Everything notebook. And I have to say, it's just like super, super helped our homeschool. So what I've been doing is, since the Everything notebook has a page for spelling, this is the grade 3 to 5 version. I was like, when I printed him his new notebook, I was like, perfect, this is the time. Because remember I was printing, I don't know if you guys saw my previous videos, I'll link it for you, where I switched out the spelling page for one of my spelling workbook pages for each day. So for this one, I was like, I'm just gonna print it the way it is. Let me find a spelling page. And we're gonna do Spelling Bootcamp just straight into his notebook. See? This was a regular spelling or vocab exercise page. Apparently we didn't do it that day. Hold on. So he would open it up to spelling vocab day, right? I'm just going from the beginning with him. I did give him his assessments, but I was like, I decided just to go through the whole thing. So I was teaching from here, and I just made a note in here that all we did was on the chalkboard, the big chalkboard, we just reviewed what phonogram and phonemes are and what consonants and vowels were, right? He pretty much already knew this. So it's just all this stuff. We went over on the board together, and we did that, the flashcard drill, right? Where we sorted, so we got his right pile, so we got his wrong pile that he's gonna be practicing for the rest of boot camp. Okay, let's see, where's the next one? So remember we talked about rule 1, and it was rule 18 that day for a lesson. So he did lesson 4, and so we have this, right? I'm teaching this. We'd start off by him going through quizzing his wrong pile, right? And we'd right pile, wrong pile it, right? Okay, when that's done, and when he gets them right, if he gets them right, I take them out. If they go to the right pile, I put them back to the big pile. And so this pile gets smaller and smaller as boot camp goes on. So we were going over lesson 4. Let me turn to it. So we were going over rule 18, part 1. Rule 18, right? He gets this for the day now. This is the stuff that he uses every day. And he is going to make his own kind of like an interactive notebook here. So I got some colored index cards, and I would write Rule 18 Part 1 on the front, and then he would write, you know, the rule here. And it's written in, and this is going to go into his review pile, right? So the next day when he reviews, he's going to go over his right pile, wrong pile for his phonograms, and then he will read that rule, okay? So for exercises, this is teacher dictates. These are some of the words. And like, you can see that like I add stuff in. So like whenever I'm done with it this year, I'm sure I'll go in and like update this resource with any changes, or like, I was like, you know what was helpful to add in was like I added in a little test to do at the end. So instead of doing the splendid spelling, because we've done that before in previous years, I did a little test for that one. So we analyzed the dictation words I had here. So you can see we got, so he just needed a pencil and a highlighter. So he sounded out pray. That was P-R-A. There's 3. So we made the there. All right. So we did some analyzing, just as I put on the exercises. Then I just made a line, and I was like, list that copy work from Wheeler's lesson 3. And here's a little tip. I don't know if you have a book, get a binder clip so it stays open. And then you can just like pop it up or whatever, right? This one's nice, it actually can stand straight up. But he copied, I said do 1, 2, and 4, right? 1, 2, and 4. So, and I just put a note here. I said, discuss why, discuss has 2 S's. Discuss why some long A's are not spelled A-Y. So there's an example here of like, there's a long A in break. There's a long A in fairy that's spelled A-I. So those are not at the end of a word as part of the rule, the end of a base word. So we know that, so I gave him like the word fail. We hear the A, oh, we hear the long A, but it's in the middle, not at the end of the word. So it cannot be spelled F-A-Y-L, right? It'll never be spelled that way because it's in the middle. And then I gave him a little test down here. I said fray, pale, say, aim, crayfish. I was trying to throw him off because cray is still a base word, right? That's a compound word. Gray, away, today, spray, and then lake. Trying to throw them off, like words that wouldn't work, right? Again, lake wouldn't work because the A sound is not at the end of the word. Okay, that was pretty good. So that was that day's lesson. And so you can just do it straight into here if you don't want to print off the student notebook. So here we went over Rule 17, also known as the floss rule. I think this is splendid spelling, right? I did dictation, I used the splendid spelling. We talked about pill versus pile, right? Because the floss rule only applies to short vowel sounds, not long vowel. Anything he got wrong, right? We did corrections, and I gave him an oral test. So this is when I just wrote down what the words were, but like I asked him just to spell it out loud for me, and I wrote down which ones he got right and wrong, right? Today we were talking about syllables. So that's one of our vocabulary words. Again, so remember, I'd be giving them cards from my stack every day. So the spelling rules, I do also have cards that are vocabulary, like diacritics, vowel teams. So when we go over, when we're just defining these terms, they get these cards too. I did do this in cursive because I want my kids to be familiar with cursive. So I like work it in, in little ways here and there. So they at least have to read it, even if they're not writing in it all the time. Phonogram, consonants, vowels, syllable. Okay. So he'd get the syllable card this day to put in his review pile. But he's making his little flip, right? Syllable. It means together with, a part of a word that contains a single vowel sound and is pronounced as a unit. We used Beau's name, Beauregard. So remember, syllables, they have one vowel sound per syllable, but they also have to have a written vowel. Okay. So he put that into his review pile. Okay, so this day we went through This is lesson 6, talking about syllables and what they are. And we just practiced, we clap counted all the syllables used in the 12 months of the year. We circled the vowels that are heard. How many syllables can be checked in a dictionary? So if you look up words in dictionaries, the word they'll have them spaced out so you can see the syllables. So remember, when kids start out spelling, they spell out sound by sound, like for letter by letter, or I should more accurately say phonogram by phonogram, but they end up spelling syllable by syllable. When we think of like a word, we say February, we go Feb-u-airy, right? Air-e. That's how we would spell it. We like Feb, F-E-B. U is spelled U. Air is spelled A-R, E is spelled Y. So as we get older, we start, we start spelling more syllable by syllable. And there's rules for syllables and how they're spelled. So you need to teach them that too, because it also teaches them how to read syllable by syllable. Rule 6 again. So he's enjoying doing this little like interactive stuff. Something I do like to do when I teach is we call these influencing arrows. Let me see if I can zoom in. Okay. So an influencing arrow is, so this E, this silent E at the end, which we do not give it a space to fill in because it doesn't make a sound. So we were spelling the word page, right? We're practicing this is rule 6. This is about English words do not end in I, U, V, or J. There's no English words, English spelling. Remember, we do have words from other languages that we use, but the ones that are English don't end in J. So if you hear J at the end of a word, it's always spelled G-E or D-G-E. And that E makes the G soft, right? That silent E. So this is what we call an influencing arrow. That silent E is influencing the G to make it soft. And it's also in this word, its influence only goes over a maximum of 2 letters, right? So when there's if you want a long vowel sound, like this long A, it can still reach that to make this say A, page, right? But in the word badge, this is why DGE is only used for the J sound after a short vowel, because this E, this silent E, so it influences the G to make it soft, but it can only go over 2 letters. So its influence can go to the D, which is a guard letter. That's why we put the G here for guard. And what is it guarding? Because D does not get softened, right? So the E doesn't do anything to the D that it reaches, but it stops it from getting to the A, because in the word badge, we want to retain the short vowel sound, ah. If that D wasn't there, and you can show them this, it would look like this. What does that say? Say, read it. That says beige, because the E would make the G soft, but it would also make the A long because of our silent E rules, which we go over too in boot camp, right? So we say, nope, that's not correct. We put that guard letter in there to retain the short A. Anyways, this is what I'm talking about, how you get into like the weeds with your kids with spelling, right? There's lots to talk about. You don't have to do things exactly how I do things or anything, but that is just how intricate spelling is and how deep it is. I was going to show you one. Sometimes we do 2, you cover 2 different rules in a lesson, right? Take 2 little flippies. If you run out of time, you don't have to do the reinforcement activity. You can just do the lesson. But I like going over these every year to refresh us on all the rules, because then as we're going through our regular spelling program, the McGuffey spelling, one of the days is we do a pattern sort, which we're sorting them by their rules. And so this is also a good way for you to do this. If you aren't familiar with what the spelling rules are, this is like your course. This is like your little teacher course to introduce you to the rules. You'll get them down. You'll remember them better than your kids do, right? But that'll help you to do this, kick off the year, kick off your spelling with a spelling boot camp, go through all the rules. Like, you will learn them and you will be a better teacher. And you don't have to do all the rules every year. If you're starting from the beginning with a young kid, you just do the ones you think that you want to teach to them, that you think that they need. If you have a scope and sequence that you're going off of, you know, or something, year by year, just do the rules that apply to that. Let's see, more influencing arrows. Yeah, to make it fun, like make it a little more colorful for them. Give them some colorful index cards. Let them use colorful highlighters. I like getting these multicolored pens, you know, and they like it too. It's like it's a little gimmicky, but whatever keeps them like enjoying themselves. You know, like, okay, well, all the influencing letters, the influencing arrows do in red, right? So like if this one was a syllable, you know, divide it by syllables using the blue, you know, stuff like that. Have them use the diacritics. Get used to that. This is a good time to study what diacritics you want to use. This one, I tried to put like a fact. It kind of was a game. We were talking about lesson 13, and lesson 13 is about the 3 most common long A patterns: AY, AI, and A consonant, silent E. We made little short ones. I said, like, what is the most common spelling of the long A? He wrote in, right, A, a blank for consonant, C, and this is a silent E. He gave me the macron of the A, and then an example word, bake. Second most common spelling of long A, usually used in the middle, right? Third most common. So we made this little game, and these are great for going back to, like, you know, you can go back through all your spelling pages later. But if I say, what's the most common spelling of long A? And see if they remember. And it's kind of like a game. Let's say they said AI. You're like, let's see. It's a silent E. I like to, when we are talking about homophones, like in this one, we were talking about ale and ale. So ale, A-I-L, is sickness. Ale, spelled A-L-E, is like a beer, right? It's a drink. We do a drink. It's just sickness. I should have drawn somebody like, looks sick. So you could do these however you want to. As you can tell, I'm making more notes that I'm sure, I made up a little copy work for this one, right? I wrote it in and had him copy it. But a male, spelled M-A-L-E, check the male, M-A-I-L, on a May, spelled A-Y, morning. So I tried to get all the spellings of long A, the 3 most common, into one sentence. I would say I probably spend 20 minutes on it with him. Make it fun. Do some highlighters. You know, use index cards, make interactive notebooks if you want to. Follow it up with splendid spelling or Wheelers for independent practice, or just do it with them. Anyways, I'll put links to everything I showed today. I hope that was helpful. If you want to do a spelling boot camp, you know, make your own or use mine. But it'll really teach you a lot about spelling, and that'll make you a better spelling teacher or spelling checker, you know, for your kids as they are doing their writing. Even if you didn't do like a year-round spelling program, I would still do something once a year, at least once a grade, where you go over the spelling rules, even if it's just the ones that you want them to learn, you know. Okay, I hope that helps, and I will talk to you later. Happy homeschooling.